What if you're calm? Was the most intimidating thing about you. We live in a world that moves fast. People react fast. Explode fast. Break fast. But here's the truth. The person who stays calm wins. Not because life is easier for them, but because they've trained for chaos. They've made peace their default setting. Now ask yourself, what if you trained your mind to be unshakable? No matter what came at you. Imagine walking through betrayal, pressure, loss, and not flinching. There's a mindset that makes that possible. It's over 2,000 years old. And it's called Stoicism. Stoicism doesn't tell you to ignore your feelings. It teaches you not to be ruled by them. It's not numbness. It's strategy. Because in every conflict, every crisis, every insult, you still have one thing no one can touch: your response. The ancient Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. They trained their minds to stay calm when others collapsed, to think when others reacted, to act with purpose. And now, so can you. In this video, you'll learn 10 Stoic rules to train your mind into an unshakable force. Not theory, not quotes, tactics, real, practical tools to help you stay calm when life gets loud, to stand still when storms hit, to be unshaken in a shaken world. By the end of this, you won't just understand Stoicism, you'll embody it, like a modern-day Marcus Aurelius. Ready? Let's begin. You will feel anger. You will feel frustration, disappointment, jealousy, sadness, even rage. You're human. You're supposed to feel, but what you feel is not the problem. What you do with it is everything. The first reaction is rarely the right one. It's fast, unfiltered, driven by ego, instinct, and emotion. You feel disrespected to you, snap. You feel misunderstood. You shut down. You feel threatened to you, fight back. That's the first wave. It doesn't ask permission, but it also doesn't have to be obeyed. The second response. That's where the real power begins. It's the pause, the observation, the decision. Stoicism doesn't demand you suppress your emotions. It demands you don't become enslaved to them. Not every feeling needs a reaction. Not every spark needs fire. Not every emotion needs a voice. If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Epictetus, anger doesn't control you unless you agree to it. The moment you feel it, you can either let it drive, or you can put it in the passenger seat and keep your hands on the wheel. Between the emotion and the response, there is space. And in that space lies your entire future. Most never see it. They react too fast, talk too soon, move without clarity. But if you slow down, you find it. And when you do, you stop being emotional. You start being dangerous. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A friend betrays your trust. A colleague throws a passive-aggressive jab. Heat rises in your chest. Adrenaline kicks in. Silence. Then breath. In. 4 seconds. Hold. 3. Out. 5. A question arises. Is this emotion sharpening me or distracting me? Is this reaction aligned with who I am or who I was? If it sharpens, channel it. If it clouds, release it. You are not your feelings. You are the one who chooses what they become. A person who reacts to everything is predictable. A person who observes becomes unreadable. Predictable people are easy to manipulate. Unreadable people are hard to provoke. And unprovoked people win in silence. 2 versions of yourself exist. One reacts on impulse. Loud, emotional, quick to fall into traps. The other remains composed, measured, focused, calculated. One tries to be right. The other chooses to be wise. Each day, each decision, each reaction is a vote for the version you strengthen. Someone says something disrespectful. Your fists clench. Your jaw tightens. Your mind races toward a comeback. But you stop. Just 3 seconds of control. That's all it takes to interrupt the cycle. 3 seconds to not say the first thing that comes to mind. 3 seconds to remember who you are and who you no longer wish to be. The more often you do this, the less control the outside world has over you. You become calm, not because life is calm, but because you have trained your mind to be still when everything else is shaking. No one can use your emotions against you if you don't hand them over in the first place. No one can break your peace if you stop giving them the tools to do it. People will notice. He doesn't overreact. She doesn't flinch. They don't respond like everyone else. That is power you don't need to announce. They feel it. You've separated emotion from action, impulse from response, chaos from control. And in doing so, you've become something rare. A mind that observes, a presence that doesn't tremble, a person who chooses their reaction like a weapon. This is not suppression. This is strategy. This is sovereignty. This is Rule 1. You are not obligated to react, especially not when someone wants you to. That's the trap. People will test you, push your buttons, say things just to see if they can break your calm. And the moment you respond emotionally, you lose. Because now they know you're reactive. You're predictable. You're easy to manipulate. The loudest person isn't the strongest. The fastest comeback isn't the most powerful. The one who stays calm controls the game. Provocation is never random. It's always a move. A calculated attempt to shift the energy in their favor. But here's what they don't expect. That you'll do nothing. That you'll stare back in silence. That you'll let them drown in their own emotional chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. So, when someone disrespects you, don't copy their behavior. Don't give them the emotional mirror they're looking for. Stand still. Let them flail. Let them perform. Let them expose their lack of control. Because the moment you stay calm under fire, you flip the power dynamic. They're no longer provoking you. They're performing for a crowd that isn't reacting. And that is unbearable for them. Weakness isn't silence. Weakness is needing to prove something, needing to respond, needing to be understood in the heat of conflict. Strength is stillness, presence, control. Let them get louder. Let them push harder. The more they rise, the more you stay low, not because you're beneath them, but because your center of gravity is deeper, and they can't reach it. Imagine two people in an argument. One is pacing, shouting, demanding. The other is sitting, calm, unmoved, watching. Who has control? It's not about who's right. It's about who owns their energy. Silence can shake a person more than words ever will, especially when they were counting on your reaction. Don't give them what they want. Give them nothing. Let them feel the weight of their own noise. Because when you respond, you relieve their discomfort. You validate their attempt. You let them know, yes, you got to me. But when you hold the line, when you say nothing, when you stand like stone, they don't know what to do with that. They don't know how to beat a man who won't step into the arena. The Stoic fights in a different dimension, not with words, not with emotion, but with absence. He removes his energy, withdraws his reaction, and in doing so, keeps his crown. Not every attack deserves a counter. Not every insult deserves attention. Not every provocation deserves a response. Self-restraint is not passivity. It's power held in reserve. The man who can destroy you, but doesn't, is feared more than the man who always reacts. And the moment they realize you can't be baited, they stop trying. You've made yourself emotionally unreachable, not by force, but by refusal. And that refusal is a language they don't speak. When someone tries to drag you into drama, don't move. Don't match energy. Don't defend your peace. Let the silence weigh heavy. Let your stillness become the answer. Because stillness isn't absence of power. It's the concentration of it. The one who can remain unmoved in the face of provocation is not cold. He is calculated. And the world respects that kind of danger. You were never promised fairness. Not by life. Not by people. Not even by God. And the sooner you accept that, the stronger you become. Most suffering doesn't come from what happened, but from believing it shouldn't have. This wasn't supposed to happen to me. This isn't fair. This isn't how things were meant to go. But here's the truth. Life doesn't care about your expectations. It moves according to its own logic, its own timing, its own brutal rhythm. You can resist that, or you can learn to move with it. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. The event is neutral. It happened. What gives it power is the story you tell yourself about it. A man loses his job. He can collapse, blame, break, or he can build again. Differently, a woman is betrayed. She can drown in why me, or she can rise in what's next. The Stoic doesn't waste time wishing things were different. He doesn't indulge in fantasies of a fairer world. He studies reality as it is. Then, adapts. When the world punches, he doesn't cry. He recalibrates. When people are unfair, he doesn't complain. He watches and adjusts. He doesn't say, "This isn't fair." He says, "This is the game. Now, how do I win?" Anyway, because that's what power looks like. Not in controlling outcomes, but in commanding response. Life will test you unfairly. You will be overlooked, used, misunderstood, punished for things you didn't do, rewarded late, if at all. But strength is found in what you do next. Most people stay stuck in the question, "Why did this happen to me?" It keeps them in victimhood, frozen in analysis, waiting for the world to apologize. But there is a better question: now what? That's the shift. From self-pity to strategy, from mourning to movement. You don't need closure. You don't need justice to move forward. You don't need fairness to grow stronger. The Stoic adapts, because adaptation is survival. There's no time to wait for a better hand. Play the one you're holding like a master. That's what Marcus Aurelius did. Betrayed by allies, fighting wars he didn't start, losing children to death, ruling an empire on the edge of collapse. He didn't cry to the gods. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He didn't ask for fairness. He asked, "What does this moment demand of me?" When you stop expecting life to be easy, you stop being shocked when it's hard. When you stop seeking comfort, you build the muscle for adversity. When you stop looking for fairness, you begin to move like a strategist. Calm, neutral, dangerously efficient. The Stoic doesn't try to make the world fair. He makes himself so capable that unfairness can't stop him. Adaptation isn't weakness. It's the deepest form of strength. It says, "You can hit me unfairly. I'll still find a way through." You weren't meant to have a smooth life. You were meant to build the strength to carry a difficult one. And that doesn't happen by waiting, or wishing, or whining. It happens when you accept the battlefield and sharpen your sword. Let others talk about fairness. You focus on fortitude, because once you stop fighting how things are, you become unstoppable in what to do next. The more you explain yourself, the less power you hold. The moment you start defending every move, you've already lowered your position. Because the one who explains is the one trying to be understood, and the one who must be understood is already on the back foot. If you live for their understanding, you die by their misunderstanding. Let them misread you. Let them create false stories. Let them whisper, doubt, distort. It doesn't change who you are. It only reveals what they see and how little it actually matters. In a room full of voices, the one who stays silent becomes the most unpredictable force. Because when you stop explaining, you stop seeking permission. You stop begging for validation. You stop proving you're good or right. And you start commanding presence by your actions alone. The Stoic doesn't speak to be liked. He doesn't clarify to be accepted. He doesn't need applause to keep walking his path. He simply does what must be done, without announcement, without apology, without explanation. That is how quiet power is built. People who always explain themselves are still trying to be approved. They're hoping if they say the right thing, in the right tone, with the right posture, they'll finally be understood. But that hope is a trap, because no matter how well you explain, some people will always misinterpret, intentionally or not, because they don't want truth, they want control. And the more you explain, the more tools you hand them to use against you later. It's why the most powerful men speak less. They don't correct the rumors. They don't rush to clarify what others think they meant. They let time and results do the talking. Marcus Aurelius could have justified every imperial decision, every military campaign, every Stoic belief. But instead, he wrote for himself, not for the crowd. And in doing so, his silence became louder than 1,000 speeches, because the most grounded person in the room doesn't need to prove a thing. He knows who he is. He knows what he's doing. And most of all, he knows not everyone deserves access to that clarity. People will ask, "Why are you distant? Why did you cut them off? Why didn't you say anything? You owe them nothing." Explanations are earned, not given by default. And when you stop explaining, something strange happens. You become harder to manipulate, harder to predict, harder to move emotionally. Because those who can't read you can't control you. Those who don't know what drives you can't weaponize your motives. Those who never hear your side of the story are left guessing in the dark. That mystery is power. This isn't about arrogance. It's about conserving energy. Not everything requires a press release. Not every move needs to be justified. Not every relationship deserves closure. Sometimes, your silence is the boundary, and your refusal to explain is the highest form of strength. The ones who can't sit with that silence were never meant to walk beside you anyway. A lion never explains why it walks alone, and neither should you. You're not here to be understood. You're here to move with precision, to live in truth even if no one sees it. Let your peace confuse them. Let your restraint unsettle them. Let your quiet defiance speak volumes. The moment you stop explaining is the moment you reclaim your power. If someone can control your mood, they can control your mind. And if they control your mind, they already control your actions without lifting a finger. This is how most people lose power. Not through force, but through emotional access. Think about it. How often do you let someone ruin your entire day with one sentence, or shift your confidence with one silence? You're calm until they ghost you. You're strong until they disapprove. You're focused until they show up and hijack your peace. This is not personal. This is structural. You've built no inner firewall. In Stoicism, the ability to control your emotional reactions is the core of personal sovereignty. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Don't feel." He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That one line is a blueprint for domination in emotional warfare. Because once your inner world is no longer shaped by external noise, you become immune to manipulation. This is not just about relationships. It's about energetic authority. When you walk into a room, do you shift the emotional temperature, or do you get burned by it? The person who stays calm when others react, who stays logical when others provoke, who stays unreadable when others try to pull strings, is the person in control of the entire dynamic. Because in every interaction, the one who stays grounded wins. That's why you must build what the Stoics understood intuitively, an emotional filtration system. Let nothing go in without passing through logic. Let no words pierce you until they've been inspected. Let no mood hijack you without interrogation. Ask yourself, is this actually mine? Is this emotion even useful? Who benefits if I lose control right now? You'll notice a pattern. Every time you're provoked to react, someone else profits. They gain psychological leverage. They gain emotional control. They gain certainty over your state. That's why in power dynamics, emotional detachment is a weapon. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you choose when and how to show it. Because the one who can't regulate himself will always be regulated by others. Imagine this. You get a message that would usually make your blood boil. But instead of reacting, you pause. You look at the screen. You breathe. You feel the emotion rise, and you let it pass like a storm that never lands. 5 seconds of silence. 5 seconds of internal control. And the message loses all power. Why? Because you didn't let it enter. You filtered it. You held the gate. You stayed king over your own emotional kingdom. This pause is not just spiritual discipline, it's high-level strategy. It makes you unpredictable. It breaks the pattern of reactivity the manipulator depends on. They want you to snap, to explain, to chase, to prove, to beg, to spiral. You do none of it. You respond when you decide. And sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. That silence, it burns louder than rage. It forces them to sit in their own storm while you stay dry and focused. That's power. Not in controlling others, but in being so centered, so calm, so unmoved that no one can drag you into their chaos without your permission. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Modern version, it's not their words. It's how quickly you let them get under your skin. So from this day forward, let your mood become untouchable. Let your emotional weather be self-governed. Let your peace be something no one can trespass. Even in chaos, you stay composed. Even in provocation, you remain still. Even in love, you keep logic. Because emotions are tools, not chains. You use them, they don't use you. That's how you become emotionally unreachable. And in that unreachability, you become untouchable. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is a blade sharper than words. And in the hands of someone emotionally disciplined, it becomes lethal. Most people fear silence because it exposes insecurity. It creates space. And in that space, the truth starts to echo. Their guilt, their desperation, their attempt to manipulate. You say nothing, and they start revealing everything. That's why silence is power. Because the more you speak, the more you give away. Your thoughts, your fears, your position. But when you say nothing, they start projecting everything. In a world addicted to noise, silence is unnatural. It's threatening. It forces the other person to sit with themselves, and many can't stand that. The Stoics understood this. They weren't silent because they had nothing to say. They were silent because they didn't need to prove anything. They didn't speak to be understood, because they knew those who want to misunderstand always will. So instead, they chose precision, not verbosity. They knew the weight of words, and they didn't waste them on people who only listen to respond, not to understand. Here's the truth. The more you argue, the more power you give away. The more you explain, the more they believe you're guilty. The more you defend yourself, the more they control the frame. But silence holds frame. Silence flips the tension. Silence shifts control. It's why high-status individuals don't chase responses. They create pressure with absence. The silent pause is a psychological trap. Say someone accuses you or tries to provoke. They expect reaction, emotion, defense. They want you to break your center, but you don't. You look, you breathe, and you say, nothing. 5 seconds, 10 seconds. In that silence, they start second-guessing themselves. They start filling in the blanks. They start chasing your attention. The power is no longer in the words exchanged, but in the words withheld. That's how you reverse control. Because when you're silent, you remain undefined. And what is undefined becomes intimidating. They can't read you. They can't predict you. They can't pin you down. So their only move to push harder while you stay still. This is the game of psychological dominance. The weak speak to relieve tension. The strong remain quiet to create it. Imagine this. You're in a heated moment. Everyone's raising their voice, explaining, over-talking. But you sit back, eyes sharp, face calm, no reaction. You just listen. You give them room to expose themselves, to unravel. And when you do speak, it's surgical. 1 sentence, maybe 2, delivered with precision, measured, intentional. Because when you master silence, your voice becomes a weapon, not a reflex. You stop speaking to fill space. You speak to define it. This isn't passive. It's not avoidance. It's tactical restraint. Just like a sniper doesn't fire every second, he waits for the moment. The one shot that shifts everything. That's what your silence trains for. That moment. And sometimes, that moment never requires a word at all. That's when you know you've won. because silence makes them reveal more than any question ever could. It makes them uncomfortable in their own skin. It makes them guess. And guessing is losing in power dynamics. Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." B1. Modern translation: stop talking. Start radiating. Your silence should say, "I don't argue with noise. I don't explain to those who've already decided. I don't defend what's already true." And when you master that energy, people feel it. In your relationships, your negotiations, your presence, even in your absence. They remember you because you didn't over-express. You didn't emotionally bleed. You let them feel the vacuum of your stillness. And in that vacuum, they collapse into their own noise. You stayed unmoved. And that stillness, that's power. So, from this point forward, learn to use silence not as an escape, but as a sword. Don't just go quiet. Go intentional, strategic, tactical. Let every pause be pressure. Let every silence be your signal. Let your quiet presence speak louder than their loudest noise. Stop asking for respect, because the more you ask for it, the more you show you don't deserve it. Respect isn't requested. It's earned by how you carry yourself when no one's watching, by how you hold your line, especially when it's inconvenient. Seneca said it clearly: first, be worthy of respect. Then, stop caring. If you get it, most people are addicted to being liked. They compromise for approval. They bend their standards to fit in. But here's the truth: the more likable you try to be, the less respectable you become. Why? Because respect is not based on niceness. It's built on principle, boundaries, integrity, power in restraint. Think about the people you truly respect. Not the loudest, not the most popular, but the ones who move with quiet certainty. They don't explain. They don't seek applause. They just are. Their power isn't in their words. It's in their posture, their discipline, the silent code they live by. And that's the Stoic path. It's not about getting admiration. It's about becoming so anchored, so precise, so self-directed, that respect becomes unavoidable. You don't chase it. You command it without saying a word. But here's the hard part. To get there, you must go through a long season of invisibility, of doing the right thing, with zero recognition, of standing alone in your values, while others laugh, of saying no, even when it costs you connection. That's where most people fail. They want instant validation. But Stoics, they play the long game. Their code is internal, and they don't violate it even when no one is looking. That's the test. Because anyone can act strong in public. But can you be honorable in silence? Can you keep your word to yourself? Can you stay loyal to your principles when there's no reward? That's where true respect is born. Not from others, but from the mirror. Because once you respect yourself truly, deeply, unapologetically, you stop negotiating your worth in the external world. You stop over-explaining. You stop proving. You stop chasing admiration from people you don't even admire. And, ironically, that's when real respect starts showing up. Because people may not understand your discipline, but they feel it. They may not like your silence, but they fear what it hides. They may not agree with your boundaries, but they start adjusting themselves in your presence. Why? Because you've made respect a requirement, not a request. And how do you do that? Here's the practice. Every single day, do one thing that strengthens your internal authority. Wake up when you said you would. Say no when something violates your values. Stay silent when reacting would make you weak. Hold your posture when others are crumbling. Most of all, keep your standards even when no one is watching. That's the unseen training of a Stoic, because in time, this silent discipline creates a presence, an energy that walks into the room before you do. And when people feel it, they adjust. Not because you told them to, not because you demanded anything, but because you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need their validation. That's what makes you powerful. You don't ask for respect. You become the kind of man who cannot be disrespected, not because you fight back, but because you don't even flinch. You don't beg for understanding. You don't lower yourself to explain your worth. You simply live by your code, and your silence speaks louder than their judgment. This is what Marcus Aurelius meant when he said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Let your actions create your gravity. Let your restraint become your reputation. Let your consistency become the legend people whisper about. And remember this, respect that's built on fear fades. Respect that's built on charm crumbles. But respect built on quiet, unshakable principle that endures. So from this day forward, don't just want respect. Live in a way that makes it inevitable." You don't owe your story to everyone. And especially, you don't owe your wounds to people who haven't earned the right to see them. There's a dangerous lie in modern culture that vulnerability is always a virtue, that sharing your struggles makes you brave, that exposing your emotions will bring you connection. But here's the truth. When you expose your weakness to the wrong person, you give them a weapon. Not everyone is your friend. Not everyone wants to help. Some people just want access. Access to your private world, to your scars, to your chaos, not so they can help you, but so they can use it later. Manipulators don't attack you when you're strong. They wait until you're cracked open, until you've confessed too much, until you've handed them the emotional ammunition, and then they smile and pull the trigger. This is why the Stoics were so controlled with their emotions, not because they lacked feelings, but because they refused to let their feelings be used against them. Marcus Aurelius journaled his pain, but he didn't tweet it. He processed deeply, but shared selectively, because he knew emotional exposure is not strength when it's given without discernment. Think about this. You can destroy someone just by knowing the right detail. Their fear, their regret, their shame. So what happens when you give those details to people who haven't earned your trust? You put a knife in their hands and hope they don't stab you later. That's not courage. That's carelessness. So the real question is not, am I strong enough to open up? The question is, has this person earned the right to witness my inner world? Every time you feel the urge to share your struggles, pause and ask, is this person genuinely here to help? Or are they just curious? Do they have the capacity to carry this, or will they gossip the moment I walk away? Have they ever proven they can hold space for truth without using it as leverage later? If the answer is no, protect your silence. There's nothing weak about keeping your pain private. In fact, it's a form of power. Stoics don't bleed publicly. They heal privately, strategically, with precision and boundaries. And here's the most important shift. You must learn the difference between processing and leaking. One strengthens you, the other drains you. Processing is intentional. It happens in safe spaces alone, with God, or with someone who's truly earned your trust. Leaking is compulsive. It's what happens when you confuse exposure with relief. When you say too much to feel momentary connection, only to regret it later. This happens often in relationships. You feel misunderstood, so you start opening up. But instead of being met with care, you get hit with judgment. Or worse, silence. Or even worse, they use your pain as proof you're unstable. Now your truth becomes your enemy. Not because it was wrong, but because you handed it to the wrong person. This is why emotional discretion is a Stoic virtue. It doesn't mean you never open up. It means you guard your soul like a fortress, only letting in those who've proven through action, loyalty, and time that they're safe. And even then, you give little by little. You watch how they handle it. You test for consistency, because trust isn't granted once it's earned repeatedly. And if they ever weaponize your words, you withdraw. Instantly and permanently. No second chances. No further explanation. Because, here's the thing, the more sacred your inner world becomes, the more selective you must be with access. Not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Let them call you cold. Let them say you're hard to read. Let them guess what you're feeling. Mystery is protection. Silence is armor. And when the time is right, when you do choose to open up, it'll be from a place of power, not banits. Intention, not impulse. Wisdom, not weakness. That's Stoic vulnerability. Grounded, guarded, given only when it strengthens the bond, never when it feeds someone's curiosity. So next time you're in pain, ask yourself, is this a safe place or a future battlefield? If you're unsure, stay silent, because sometimes your silence is your survival. There's a point in every conversation where words stop being about clarity and start becoming weapons. You'll know it when you see it. Voice raised, eyes flaring, logic dissolving. You're no longer having a discussion. You're inside someone else's storm. This is where most people lose themselves. They think I can explain it. I can make them understand. I can fix this if I just say the right thing. But you can't. Not because you're wrong, but because you're speaking logic to someone drowning in emotion. Marcus Aurelius warned us, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. Yet we often do. Because the ego wants to be understood. It wants to win the exchange. But the moment you try to win with someone who's already lost emotional control, you're giving away your power. And worse, you're stepping into their frame. This is where the Stoic separates from the reactive. The Stoic doesn't chase closure in chaos. He doesn't need to be right in the eyes of someone blinded by emotion. He knows when the mind is on fire. Words only add fuel. Let me tell you a story. A Roman commander once stood in the middle of a battlefield. His own soldier insulted him, accused him of betrayal. The camp fell silent, waiting for retaliation. But the general looked at the man and simply said, "I'll address your words when you are capable of listening." Then he turned and walked away. That moment wasn't weakness. It was command. Because the battlefield wasn't out there, it was inside. And he refused to let someone else draw him into a war of emotions. You must do the same. When provoked by someone unstable, don't argue. Don't explain. Don't dance for their understanding. Instead, stop. Breathe. Withdraw with poise. Let their chaos expose itself in your silence. Because sometimes, the most dominant energy in the room is the one that doesn't flinch. Let them say you're cold. Let them say you're distant. Let them project. Your job is not to clear your name in every storm. Your job is to protect your peace. And here's the tactical rule to remember. Never enter a debate with someone emotionally hijacked. You can't win because they're not trying to understand. They're trying to unload. So let them, but don't absorb it. Don't reflect it. Don't mirror their storm. Instead, choose stillness. Let it disarm them. Because when you choose not to engage, you win a battle. Most people don't even know they're in. The battle for emotional sovereignty. Imagine this. You're in a room. Voices rise. Fingers point. Someone accuses you of something you didn't do. Your heart races. Your face heats up. Every part of you wants to react, defend, snap. But then, you take a breath. You look them in the eye and say nothing. Not because you're weak, but because you've already won. That's not just calm, that's power. That's cold logic operating where emotion is trying to hijack everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is the art of Stoic intelligence. Not about how much you know, but how much control you have over what knows you. True intelligence is measured when your mind stays cold, even when the world tries to light it on fire. Let me tell you what most people do when chaos hits. They panic. They react without thinking. They let the moment control their response, not their reasoning. And later, they regret it. Because the damage done by a hot mind in a hot situation is often irreversible. Now imagine you trained yourself to do the opposite. Imagine you saw every confrontation, every insult, every emotional ambush, not as a threat, but as a test, a game of chess. You're not reacting. You're calculating. You're watching how people reveal themselves while keeping your own next move hidden behind your calm. This is how you become untouchable in chaos. This is how the Stoic wins. Not by overpowering others, but by overpowering his own impulses. Here's something practical. Think of the last time you lost your cool. Maybe it was a text that hit the wrong nerve. a betrayal, a misunderstanding that triggered your defenses. Now pause, rewind it, and imagine yourself in that same moment. But this time, as a Roman general, unshaken, controlled, your breath slow, your eyes steady. You don't react immediately. You scan, you evaluate, and then, if necessary, you move. Every reaction is now a strategic move. Notoknijerk emotional burst. That's what it means to have a cold mind in a hot moment. It's not easy, but it's trainable. It begins with discipline, deliberate pausing, self-command. The next time life throws heat your way, don't match it. Cool it down. Be the ice in the fire, the stillness in the fight, the clarity in the confusion, because the man who can stay calm when others lose their minds will always be the one in control, not just of the room, but of himself. And that is the highest intelligence there is. You don't need to control the world. You don't need to win every argument, predict every threat, or fight every fire. You just need to command your mind. Because once your mind is untouchable, no chaos can reach you. No insult can shake you. No manipulation can move you. This is the paradox of true strength. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just is. A calm mind doesn't fight for dominance. It makes dominance unnecessary. It doesn't seek validation. It becomes undeniable. Think about it. Most people are at the mercy of their emotions. They react. They explode. They expose their weaknesses every time something pokes their pride or shakes their ego. But you're not playing that game anymore. You don't need to prove how smart you are. You don't need to argue with the irrational. You don't need to show your wounds to people who would weaponize them. You've chosen a different path. A path of quiet power, of stoic discipline, of unreadable, unshakable calm. So remember this: you don't need to fight chaos. You need to become untouchable by it. Let the world burn, if it must. But you stay cold. You stay sharp. You stay calm. Because in the end, the calm mind always wins. Always. Comment below.